Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Good evening. Good Wednesday evening, everybody. It's Wednesday, December 9th, 2020. And this is this week's edition of Dialogues with Doc. I want to say thank you to everyone who is joining me on tonight. We have another amazing show lined up. So I'm very excited about tonight's topic and tonight's guest. But of course, you know how we always do. I want to check in with you guys. I want to see how you guys are doing. If you're out in the audience and you're watching, please, sir, please, ma'am, let me know where you are watching from. I would love to check in with you and say thank you. So if you're watching tonight's show, and wherever you're watching from, go ahead and type in the chat. You guys know how we operate. It's all interactive. So we're having a dialogue and a discussion, but we're also acknowledging what you guys are saying, your feedback, your input. So your appreciation and your comments are very much appreciated. Hey, Dana, I see you. I miss you so much. B Walker, what's up, brother? Thank you for joining, man. Thank you for joining. Dana, you're in Philly and B Dub is in the DF Dub. So thank you guys so much for watching and joining in with me on tonight. I want to say it's Wednesday. We are 2 weeks before Christmas. So this year is officially we are officially in the home stretch of this year. So we can breathe a little bit more. We can breathe a little bit better. We have some executive orders that are being executed in a few weeks, so I'm very excited about that. And I'm just in a thankful space that this year could have been a whole lot worse, although it has been worse, but we are in the home stretch of it. Thank you guys so much for joining me again. I've been doing this thing since August the 5th to be exact. This is something that came out of pandemic boringness. It was laid upon me and in my spirit to just provide a space, a dialogue for people to talk. So that's how Dialogues with Doc was birthed. So I'm very excited about this platform. I'm very excited about some of the topics that we have discussed since we've started. We've done parenting in a pandemic. We've had Black male educators. I've had Black male, female educators on. We've done a Black Banks edition. And tonight I was tonight I'm being obedient. I'll say that. When I am praying for and getting thoughts and topics to come up with, I listen to what God is saying to me. And tonight's topic was really a download from him. And I just want to be obedient on tonight with tonight's topic and be very cognizant of the topic. For tonight's topic, I really wanted to take a deep dive in and do a Doc Verde wellness check on some individuals who I am so honored and proud to be connected with. A lot of times we are in a space where people are always serving and giving of themselves and sacrificing and doing a bunch of different things for other people. And it becomes who they are. It's a part of the thread and their fiber that's embedded in them. And it continues to become a part of their character and how we know them and how we view them. But a lot of times, no one checks in with them. No one checks in to see how they are doing, or people don't check in the manner in which they should for people who are always so giving and so cognizant of how they are doing. So tonight's topic was a strategic download from on high. And if you know me, you know I'm a man of the faith. I believe in everything that the word says, and I want to be very intentional and specific with regards to what was downloaded to me. Tonight's topic is near and dear to my heart because it's titled Pastoring in a Pandemic. So I've done a show on parenting in a pandemic. I've done a show on educating in a pandemic. I've done a show checking in with Black male educators during this pandemic. I've done a show on Black banking in this pandemic. It's like I've done everything, but there was always one more area of interest that was tugging on me that I needed to address. So this topic tonight, pastoring in a pandemic, is something that is a direct strategic download from on high, from God. I'm going to do this with the level of excellence that it was given to me. I have some amazing guests joining me on tonight. I have some amazing guests that are going to bring a bunch of different feedback and a bunch of different concepts and just provide a foundation for how they are doing, I'm getting tongue tied. I'm getting excited. How they are doing in the midst of this thing. So tonight I have invited Pastor Chris Wesley of the Antioch Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church and Dr. Khaalida Forbes from the Truth City, DC Church onto the show on tonight. These are two individuals who I highly respect, who I highly love, who I highly believe are here for God's people and are after God's own heart. So tonight's dialogues with Doc may be a little bit different for those who've never experienced it before, but I promise you will be blessed by the conversation. I promise you will be blessed by the guests that I have on. And you're just going to be blessed, period, because this is a blessed space. Amen. And if you don't receive it, lift your hands up so I can throw it to you virtually and you'll catch it. So give me 1 second. Of course, this is Dialogues with Doc. I can't do this any other way without bringing my guest on the right way. So if you would give me a moment to bring them on the right way, like we do on Dialogues with Doc. I mean, it's only one way. Don't do it. You gotta do it right.
Hilarious.
Pastor Chris and Pastor Dr. Khaalida Forbes. How are you two doing tonight?
Good. How are you?
I am so. I'm just I'm in a space right now where I'm just so excited. I'm so honored. I'm so thankful, and I'm highly appreciative that the both of you have decided to join me on tonight. Thank you guys for taking time out of your busy schedules to join me. This is kind of like a bittersweet moment for me. For those who don't know, this is kind of like where the rubber meets the road for me. My story is in the one church I grew up, and the other church I'm manning up. So they meet in a very heartfelt space on tonight. So I'm so excited to have you both on. Pastor Khaalida, jump in here and just tell us about you, where you're from, and then Pastor Chris, jump in right behind her, and then we'll jump into our dialogue.
Okay, well, my name is Khaalida Forbes. I am proudly from Brooklyn, New York, born and raised, but I live now in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. and I am a therapist by trade, and I am a preacher of the gospel by calling. And I'm also the pastor of a really awesome church located in the DMV called True City. And Calvin, I'm honored to be on this show with you as well as Pastor Chris tonight.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, bro. And Dr. Forbes, it's a pleasure to get a chance to meet you as well. I've been blessed by your ministry from afar, so it's a joy to get to do this with you. I'm Chris Wesley, as Calvin said, Dr. Green said. I get the privilege to pastor the Antioch Fellowship Church of Dallas, Texas. I'm a native Dallasite, born and bred. And honored to pastor in the city where I was reared. I'm a pastor of a great church. I had the pleasure of succeeding my father, who went home to be with the Lord a little over a year ago. And so I have kind of been in this senior pastor lead seat officially since February. So it's a joy to get to do this. I was officially named pastor of my home church February 9th, and March 15th, we were in the middle of pandemic. So really all I know is pastoring in a pandemic. So, but it's a joy to be on tonight, man. Thanks for the invitation.
No, thank you both. I love both of you because you guys are so awesome in your delivery of the gospel and making it relatable and relevant. And I know that this hasn't been easy. So I'm gonna jump right into this thing with my first question, and I gotta give me 1 second. Where did it go? Okay. So as a pastor, I'm taking you back to March. When you heard shut down, lockdown, what thoughts went through your head? Pastor Khaalida, matter of fact, I was with you in service, March the 15th. And everyone's talking about this shutdown, lockdown, and maybe 48 hours later, this thing is real. What went through your head when you heard that?
Okay, now you're trying to re-traumatize me tonight. That's what we're trying to do. Okay, so because y'all remember that I really feel like this thing snuck up on us, even though we were hearing reports around the end of 2019. There were reports floating around about a virus, but it still was not registering for us. And then we go into January and February, and even the top of March, it's still not registering. And so as things are starting to inflate the top of March, I remember the weekend of our last weekend where we were across the country allowed to worship. I had a preaching engagement in New York City. And so I remember that week before our last Sunday for all of us being together. Do y'all remember it was either Wednesday? I think it was a Wednesday night. Y'all remember when the NBA, the National Basketball Association, shut down? For some reason, you would have thought the NBA was Jesus. When the NBA shut down, we were like,
everything. Mm-hmm.
We were all like, are we in trouble? Is there an issue? Is there something afoot? Right? Because the NBA, I was like, something's going on. But we drove to my preaching assignment in New York, which was the heart of what they were saying was going on. And then we came back that Sunday and we were praying and trying to intercede about what we finally realized was more serious than we thought. But fam, I really had no idea. I don't know about you, Pastor Chris. I did not know that this thing was going to be as long as it was. Like, honestly, I thought maybe a couple of Sundays.
Couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Pastor Chris? I didn't think, Chuck, listen.
I was never forget it. I was minding my own self business on a Thursday evening, eating dinner, minding my own self business.
Yeah.
So the night before the NBA shuts down, I said, oh, this is bad.
Yeah.
I'm sitting down eating and I get a random text from a member who's in the mayor's office that says, Pastor Chris, FYI, the mayor and the county judge, they're about to shut the city down. I said, well, what does that mean? I don't even know what that means.
Right.
So they get on the news that Thursday night and make a ban that says you can only have 500 people in the space. So at this time it's 500, but to us that's a huge deal. So we're like, well, do we cancel service? Do we, how are we going to number 500 people? That, and that's just okay. I don't know how we're going to do this. So I call an emergency staff meeting on a Friday. Now, mind you, our church office is closed on Friday, but on Friday I pull all my associate pastors, my key decision people. All right, y'all, what are we gonna do? And some of them was like, well, I ain't trying to go to church. The others were like, well, we need to give people an option. So we get this plan in our minds. This is what we're gonna do. We're gonna have service. Now, you know how we do. We come up with like loopholes, right? So they said 500 in a space. I said, no, we got 3 spaces where we can get 500 people in. So if we get 500 in the worship center, cool. We'll get 500 in the multi-purpose center, simulcast. We'll get 500 in chapel, cool. But we don't know anything about the virus. This one, like, I don't know how serious. We don't know. And in my mind, it's like, all right, we'll do this for 2 weeks. We have service on March 15th that way. We may have a couple, maybe about 100 people show up because now because of the NBA thing, there is like mass hysteria and paranoia. Mm-hmm. Within day, like I think we had service March 15th. By that Monday, Tuesday, we had already set up our next thing, which is I had gotten word that they were going to shut it down from 500 to 50 to 10. They had already told us what they were about to do. So I preached Sunday, March 15th. Monday, March 16th, we pre-record for the next Sunday.
Smart.
Because we had already started to think through, this is going to be a couple week thing, but no big deal. Our young adults met on Monday nights. We'll use the young adult group as the little studio audience. We had our first little Antioch. They were going to be there anyway. Cool, but we're only going to have to do this one time.
Yeah.
I just built in the vacation.
Yeah,
and then they were like, no, this is like 6 weeks. I said, oh, Jesus, wait a minute, God. Like they told us this is in place for 6 weeks. It was crazy. I will never forget it, bro.
And honestly, you guys are speaking as pastors. As an educator, we thought the same thing. They said, pack your little stuff up. We thinking 2-3 weeks, this shall pass.
And spring break.
And we look, they moved spring break up to kind of accommodate. Like we're gonna take your spring break by moving it early, but then you still. So we've been in this thing 9 months. We've been in this thing 9 months as parishioners, as pastors. How have you adjusted to this new norm of pastoring? Like everything is virtual. Pastor Chris said you were pre-recording stuff for the coming week. Pastor Khaalida, and I want to say this: both ministries have done an amazing job of doing this thing. But how?
You go, Pastor Chris.
Yeah. So thank you, Dr. Ford. So what's crazy is there was no norm for me yet, right? Like I had.
Just got in.
Church voted February 9th. I took the second Sunday. I took the next Sunday off. I had just started this series on transition from the life of Joshua, right? I had just started this series, and then everything changed. It's been hard for a couple reasons. As most pastors, right? We're creatures of habit, so we get these rhythms.
Yes.
Right, pre-recording was really hard for me because I had at least figured out my sermon prep rhythm because I had been doing it since Dad died. So for me, I knew what my Bible study preparation rhythm was and then what my sermon prep rhythm was. And I told you, I preached March 15th. March 16th, I'm recording for March 23rd. Mm-hmm. I don't typically start sermon prep until Wednesday. The first 2 days, like Monday, I don't do nothing.
Nothing.
Nada.
Nothing. If I do anything, I'm going to play golf or
Right.
like, but I don't do nothing on Monday. Don't look for me at the building. I will not be there. Don't call me. Don't ask for me. I love you. I'll see y'all Tuesday. Tuesday is meeting day. It's literally, I run all my meetings down on Tuesday. I try to get all that stuff out the way the first part of the week. Wednesday is when I'm finally sermon prepping, right? So it threw off my rhythm. Pre-recording was so hard for me, I couldn't quite get the rhythm of it. And by the time we moved, because we're back live now, we moved back live in July. It even threw off my rhythm a little bit more. So the first thing I'll say is that being a creature of habit when it comes to preparation and organization, that was extraordinarily difficult. Two, Calvin, you know Antioch, man. We take the fellowship in our name seriously. So pre-pandemic, I will stand in the big hallway in the building, and I will hug and shake hands with however many people want to hug, shake hands, and talk. We start service at 10, we done by 12. I'm in the building till 1:15 hugging. And I love so to miss taking selfies with Kathy Cole and to, do the things that our church just naturally, organically does. That was really difficult. And then just to try to figure out,
get out my nose.
And then just to try to figure out how much content was too much content. Right? So like you might have seen it. We were literally putting content out all the time. We just didn't know what we were doing. We were like throwing stuff at the wall and just seeing what stuck. I don't think there was no model. There was no game plan. The people that I would call, the mentors in ministry that I would call were calling me. Like I would never forget. We're 2 weeks into the pandemic, and a pastor in the city who's like an uncle to me calls and says, "Hey, let's have lunch." I go with him at his church. We have lunch, and he was like, "What you gonna do?" Because I'm looking at you. He been pastoring for 30 years, and he asking me, and I'm like, "You tell me." So honestly, man, it was a struggle to adjust, man. I think even now we're all just trying to take it day by day and figure out what's next. Even now, strategic planning. We're trying to do strategic planning for 2021 and finalize budget and calendar. And it's like, bro, there is no calendar. COVID is the calendar. So they tell us, you know what I'm saying?
Like, jump in here. How have you adjusted?
As a therapist, I want to say that I don't know if this conversation is healthy for me because I am being re-traumatized. And
I'm sorry.
Listen. Okay, so I agree 100% with what Pastor Chris is saying from the perspective of we preach in series. So my whole preaching schedule was done for 2020. Exactly what series we're doing for the entire year. And so I already am starting to put scriptures with certain Sundays and getting downloads. I'm like, oh, that's a good introduction for the second because we're always forecasting into the future. And so when Pastor Chris was talking about the rhythm, our life moves on a rhythm because when you're serving people equal uncertainty, meaning that you never know what a person is going to need, what they're going to bring, and to be able to be flexible to meet the needs of the people. So you'll find that preachers and pastors or people who are in the serving industry, even with teachers, those that are educators, because you all are serving people, you'll find that it's important in certain aspects of our lives that we have consistency. Not we'll be all over the place. And so literally finding that Sunday that I could not continue with our series, that just would not have been integral. It wasn't God. And so for the first couple of 3-4 weeks, I'm just moving on. God, what are you saying? What are you saying? And then find the appropriate way to get us back onto the theme, especially because the overarching message of what God wanted to say about the year, which regardless of what COVID was doing, doesn't change what God originally said. And then that the George Floyd situation happened, and that ended up impacting what was going on with an already very sensitive organization. But I'm amazed that Pastor Chris was like, all I know is because, fam, like to start something in a new role and then this hit. But for True City, we were a 10-month-old church.
Wow.
So, on April 21st, 2019. And so when COVID hit, like you think about it regarding children or baby, we are a 10-month-old baby. And so at that is not the time for a baby to be snatched away from their parent, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tell people, Pastor Chris, I wish I had a staff to bring. We don't have a salaried staff right now. You understand what I'm saying? I wish that, like, it was so many dynamics that were very different for True City, which is why I will honor our people and our church forever, because what they were able to do through this pandemic, when they were a 10-month-old baby, you can't tell me nothing now. You can't tell me nothing about True City, child. I believe God's hand might actually be on this church.
I believe it. And to your point, even about thematic emphasis for the year, yes. I preached a sermon on New Year's Eve called Rain is Coming. It was the idea, behold, I hear the sound of the abundance of rain. Like, that's what the Lord had impressed on my spirit. Yeah. But in my mind, it meant one thing, right? Now, on the back end of it, to your point, the theme doesn't change.
Yeah.
The rain came for real. And we've grown in the pandemic. So, like, God spoke truth. And I think one of the most complex things, even in series preaching, is like, all right, Lord, I know you heard me like pray, and I know I heard you when you said, this is what I'm supposed to be saying in this season. Yes. I know you didn't lie, but now the circumstances surrounding it don't necessarily feel like it fits. And then you find yourself even seeing that what God really did was allow us all an opportunity to preach prophetically, right? To preach in a way where we were having to navigate in a way.
Don't start.
I'm through, but
you get me excited. Don't you start, because this is my first time meeting you, but my spirit already likes you. So we got to bring it in, because listen, because I'm sorry, Calvin, isn't that what happens with our people though? They get a word from God, and then their life circumstances start to say something. All right, Calvin, what was you gonna say?
That's it.
No. This is a good space. No, go.
We begin to model. We were modeling for the people what God wants our relationship, because it's not about religion, it's about relationship, and He wants them to know how to function with Him. Monday through Saturday. And so He was just like, pastors, show them how to pivot, because they have to pivot on a Wednesday afternoon, and they have to pivot on a Friday evening. And so let me tell you something. All I know is that when we get back together, DC and Antioch and Tech, I'm talking about revival is going to hit our churches.
I believe it. And I've been telling Pat, the scriptures teach us that God has put Christ at the head of all things for the good of the church. We've been praying for revival to break out. We've been praying for fresh revelation. We've been praying for all these things. But what I've noticed, even for me, is especially I felt like, and I told people this prior to my dad's passing in November, I felt like my preaching was hitting this wall. Right, like there was another level I couldn't quite get to, and then my dad passed, and it went to another level, and then this pandemic hit, and it's going to another level. And I feel like God uses these things, right, to birth some stuff out of us. And when we learn how to pivot, we actually learn how to hear better, right? Like I think when we learn how to move in the moment, we put ourselves in a position where we gotta trust His voice for real. And we can't rely on our gift, and we can't rely on what we know, skill wise about the art of preaching. Yes. Now we got to get to a place of like, all right, Lord, now what now? And not just from the pulpit, but even from the structure. Like, Lord, I need you to talk to me about how I'm moving, how we're moving as a church, and how I'm leading this people through this season. So yeah, that's so profound. That's so good.
It's amazing how Truth City was a 10-month-old baby, and then this pandemic hit. And Antioch has been around 34, right, brother?
34, going on 35. Yes, sir.
And although the ages are different, the capacity that God has placed within the ministries is causing them to survive in this pandemic. So I want to jump. Look, y'all done threw me all off over here on my notes, but I'm good now. I'm back. So surviving versus thriving. So some churches are surviving and some are thriving. What makes what you do in your ministry different during this pandemic? Because you guys are definitely thriving. While some churches are closing doors, Truth City's doors are still open. Antioch doors are still open. So there has to be something that is happening within the ministry or that has happened in the midst of this pandemic to make these ministries different.
For us, I think there are a couple things. One, there are those who choose to, coming to the last point, reject pivoting. If this is how I've always done it, and if we don't do it this way, we can't do it, versus those who say, all right, virtual is the new way. We got to touch, you know what I mean? So I think for us, and it's interesting you even brought it up, I think on the one hand, for a church that's younger, they might be more able to move and bend, you know, for lack of a better term. So Antioch is interesting, and I was a little concerned, if I'm being honest. And I know I see some Antioch people, a couple of my staff folks on here. But we've had these conversations. I was concerned because Antioch is a multi-generational church, but for 34 years, Antioch functioned in a lot of the same ways. My dad wasn't on social media. He would preach a sermon. They went live because they were supposed to, and 10 hours after church, the live was off of the social media platforms. You couldn't find it nowhere. You had to go to the church and buy that DVD if you want it. You got to go buy the tape, right? We didn't stream midweek stuff. There was just not that. And so it forced us to have to say, we have to do things differently or we're going to lose touch with our people. And, you know, kudos to my team. They were all ready to pivot. I think the longer something has been settled, the more drastic an event it takes to unsettle it. Mm-hmm. COVID was the best thing in the world for my pastorate because it made people realize if we don't change, we'll die, right? So we had to change. The other thing that I think has helped us thrive is when we realized everything was changing, almost 100% of our ministry budget went to people. It goes to feeding people. We started feeding people every week, and not just like little meals, but like we're giving away whole chickens and ground beef, and every week people driving through and picking up food boxes, and you know we're still helping kids get scholarships and giving. So when we totally learned to pivot, that now, from a financial standpoint, the intentionality is let's make sure we're caring for our people. We're delivering food to our seniors every week. And I think what's helped us to thrive is our entire church said, for those of us who aren't working, that's an opportunity to serve. How are we serving the people around us? And I think because that's what our strategy, yes, we still had church, we still did those things, but then we were really intentional about going above and beyond as it related to our service to the community around us. We've always done it. We were just intentional about going to another level. And I think God has honored that. It's seed in the ground, and God has honored that. So those are the two things for us. We were just willing to pivot, willing to change. We weren't so caught up in what we had always done. And we turned our strategy to caring for people even more intentionally.
I love it. Hold on for me, Pastor K. Deleon, I see you. You said the pandemic caused churches to be uncomfortable and either adjust and progress or not and be dissolved. That's a powerful statement, man.
Yeah, man.
That's a powerful statement. Pastor K, I'm sorry. Jump in here.
Oh, no, I'm thinking when Pastor was talking, I'm laughing to myself because I would be on the phone with my covering, our bishop, at the beginning. And I'm going through all of my emotional stuff about what's going on. And he kept on trying to remind me and encourage me, you're in the best position you could be in because Truth City hasn't settled yet. And so at the time, Pastor Chris, I wasn't receiving all of that. I get it now. You see what I'm saying? Because you're wishing that you had more resources or whatever the case may be. that large, or churches that have just been in existence longer. But because we were in that 10-month phase, they weren't married to one way of doing thing or one way of functioning. And so that was a good thing. And the other thing, which is similar to what Pastor Chris said, that I've been saying about True City from God since we were in our launch process, which is that True City is a unique church because we have a commitment from a mandate from God to stay in what I call the now of God, meaning we will never be stale. There's nothing stale about our God. And stay in the now of God, which means that the senior leader, but all of the leadership needs to be leaning in to ask God, what do you want, Father? I know that because in churches, I grew up in a Baptist church, but I don't care what denomination, we like routine. And so annual something. We have everything's annual. We got annual Women's Day, every annual picnic. It's just a bunch of this is what we do, and it can become religious and monotonous, and then those things can become idolatry because we begin to be so connected to the event. And I'm just thinking when Pastor Chris was talking about how we were like, we need to shift, we need to serve. It's like they started making the main thing, which is that we're not created just to come. Churches don't exist just to come together on Sunday for us to worship, but we're supposed to be an impact in the community. Like they say, if a church leaves and shuts down, the community should be able to feel their absence. And if they don't, that means that we didn't do what we were supposed to do, which is why God placed that church in that place. And so I say, you want to stay in the now of God. You want to ask him, Father, what do you want? And I think that if churches and leaders continue to do that, there's no situation that you will not be able to walk through. But we were so accustomed to doing church that I think that we had stopped asking God when we were putting the calendar together. Same thing we did last year. Not asking God, Father, what would you have us to do so that he can give us fresh downloads? People say millennials have all these fresh downloads. No, God has fresh downloads, son. Like there's nothing stale about my God. Like you should listen to him sometimes. He's got really good ideas.
He's creative. He
is.
He's creative. Yeah, that's so good.
I love what you both just said. And in this cyber church era, when we're talking about surviving and thriving, I think it's good to point out as well that this pandemic has allowed people to cheat, meaning on their ministries. So
they were cheating before this pandemic.
Right. Go ahead. But what it does, what I mean, Pastor K, is the pandemic caused them to. Well, let me see what my other pastor's saying today, because it's all virtual now. So I was talking to a friend the other day about it, and she said, "Well," I said, "Hey, how's it going at your church?" She said, "Well, I don't go to no more." And I was like, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, we're talking about this, the now of God." She said, "God downloaded into me that where I was supposed to have been gone a long time ago, but because of the cycle and the repetitiveness, I got there and I got stuck. But now I'm able to hear clearly because of the pandemic from God, and I'm where I'm supposed to be." So this whole cyber church movement has allowed people to join from all over. It's not just a local a DMV based ministry or a DFW based ministry. Antioch probably has members in Zimbabwe for all we know. Or True City has members in Tanzania, and it allows the ministry to take on a global mandate because of the whole cyber thing, and it really does go outside of the four doors because the pandemic is shaking up in all of us.
Do you realize? And it's crazy. Do y'all realize that on the Sunday after the 15th, church broke Facebook? Like
so true.
We shut down Facebook for 2 hours. They literally said we didn't have the capacity to hold everything that was happening because all of a sudden this pandemic pushed us to see that it is beyond your little bubble. And for us, and I think, and Pastor Brandon Walker's on here live. Pastor B is our pastor of online creativity and online discipleship and creativity, and we have been talking about what our e-church model was going to look like before the pandemic. Mm-hmm. The Lord dropped the word in my spirit. I've been telling the staff since February. I've been telling the church that when Jesus calls Peter to be a disciple, he tells him, prepare your nets for a great catch, plural. Prepare your nets, drop your nets. He said, all right, cool, Lord, at your word. The Bible says he then throws a net, singular. So the net starts to break. And what the Lord started telling me to tell our staff and our church is, the problem is we don't have infrastructure for increase. You want God to send more, but you ain't built the nets or prepared the nets or cast the nets to prepare for more. This pandemic made us build the infrastructure. It's cyber, and your pastoral care has to change. Now you got to touch more people without being there. And now we got to do it. And the Lord used the pandemic to make us build our nets, to prepare our nets for a great catch. So for, like you said, now there are a lot of people who are coming into the fold, not just from different churches, but there are people who hadn't been to church in years that are tuning in every week because that's all that's on social media Sundays, 10, 11, 12, 1. All you going to get is a church service. All your members in church. You get on Facebook at 9 o'clock to 1 o'clock on Sunday, and all you seeing is all your church friends and what church they going to. It may increase.
Absolutely.
I love it. I love it. I'm going to jump here for a second. So as a leader of many congregants, how are you dealing with skin hunger? So for those of you who don't know what skin hunger is, that's touch deprivation. So, we love the people. We love to see the people. We love to shake hands. We love to hug. But we in this pandemic where it's not like I don't know you. I can't do that right now. I need to keep me safe. So as a pastor, like, how are you dealing with like the missing the people and not being able to hug them or touch them or just say, Pastor Khaalida, hey girl, hey, how you doing? One of Pastor Khalida's favorite line is, girl, those some nice shoes. That's how we interact with Sioux City. Pastor Chris, your neighbor, high five. How are you guys dealing with? It's been a long 9 months without seeing your people. Like,
yeah, I think that one of the things that just dropped in my mind that I would say on occasion when we first started is that I didn't realize how much an atmosphere impacts my from a prophetic standpoint, because hey, when I tell you I love me some Breonna Parker, but I didn't know, I just wasn't aware of the fact that I'm very sensitive to the atmosphere when I'm preaching. And so I'm aware of what's going on and how the people are moving. And so I know how long to stay in a point. Like, I know when I need to shift over here and marinate, and dig up, excavate some things over here in this point a little more. And so because I can feel the people because we're in the room. And so I feel like that's something that I lost when we were online. You know what I'm saying? Because there are times where I was recording and the only people that were there was the production team. But separate from that, we tried to do things at True City so that we could still be connected, like things that didn't have anything to do with like lifting a text. And so we would do like game nights and like different things so that there was still that sense of closeness, even though people were in different homes. And the other thing that I found out is that when things started to loosen, like around like August, September, I started noticing that the members were starting to have some small get-togethers in a safe way themselves. And I believe at True City that God in this season allowed some relationships to be birthed that may not have been birthed if they would just be like, hey girl, on Sunday, and then going about their work week. But I think they were leaning on one another. And I would say, check on your brothers and sisters, like reach out to them, make sure that they're okay. So people were crying together, like, I don't know what's going to happen with my job. And people were ministering. I mean, the people in our congregation, we found out that there's so much inside of them that we weren't aware of. And so I mean, they are, Pastor Chris, I'm talking about doing good pastoral counseling for one another, like give each other like scriptures, like, sis, meditate on this. God's gonna do it for you. I'm believing in faith for you. I'll fast for you. And so it's like, it wasn't skin to skin, but it kind of became Calvin faith to faith. And something God's been up to something. Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
So good. We when we started this, we encourage people to watch with their families, right? Y'all go get grandmama, y'all stream together as families and send selfies in, and you watching the service and whatever. And that was great. Because to your point, it did build some relationships, and then people were gonna get out the house, they were gonna do it on their own, and so that was cool. Now, for me personally, if I'm being honest, and those who know me best know, I am an introvert, right? So initially, I was like, cool, like cool. I'd rather be in the house anyway. I was watching from the couch to like, go with God. It got to the point where I was really missing that fellowship. Since we've been back in the building, it's been really hard. So one of the things that we started doing was this drive-through thing. So people were driving through every week, picking up food, dropping off their tithes and offering. We give out, we out there on the grill cooking hot dogs and hot links and giving them chips and stuff for the kids. So it gave the opportunity just to see each other. What people driving all over, line long, but people just wanted to wave, and that was great. Now that we're back in the building with a limited capacity, it's even hard for me to preach and do pastoral emphasis, close service, and hit the door and not get the hug and talking. It is the hardest thing, right? But to that point, like Dr. Khaalida said, like that faith-to-faith thing is real. I found that more people will reach out via call or text or email and be like, hey, Pastor, how can I pray for you this week? Like there are these, to that point, there's this maturity happening in the church that we're maturing and realizing it has to be more than this, right? And so, you're watching people serve each other because now they see what the real needs are. You're watching people love on each other, and that's been an incredible thing. That's been an incredible thing.
And I like what you both are saying about this faith-to-faith piece. Well, I want to go back to the small groups. There are people in the church that have been there for years that have just been hesitant about small groups, but this pandemic has made them open their eyes and their faith to connect outside of the ministry, like Pastor Khaalida was saying, and just do things together. And it's like, girl, I ain't got a lot of faith, but if I match my faith with your faith, this faith-to-faith thing is what's getting a lot of us through this thing, because like Pastor Khaalida said, we're imparting more into each other. We're taking the ministry outside the four walls, which has always been, we've always been told this, but now it's real. I need to attach my faith with your faith today, because me and Monday don't get along when she comes around. So I need your faith to tell my faith to dig a little deeper so you can make it through the workday and not have to strangle somebody's child. That's my faith. That's my faith.
To that point, bro, I think part of the reason small groups was such a weird thing, even for me, like trying to figure out how do we make this small group thing happen? And that's because I think the Lord has shown us that's because you try so hard to program something that's supposed to be organic in the first place. God never wanted us to have to program relationship. You know what I'm saying? Like, think about it. We've literally racked our brains for the last decade in church with this small group concept because we've been trying to figure out how to program what for believers is supposed to be organic. So what does God do? He allows something to take place that makes us do organically what was always supposed to come organically, right? We couldn't program it because it doesn't make sense to try to program relationships. But watch what happens when a global pandemic hits your life. When everybody at home, you're furloughed, when you can't go to church, when you can't go to your, when you can't get with your clique, Now you gotta really do the work of relationship versus trying to rely on the programs that make you feel like you're in a relationship. You got programs that make you feel like you walk with people, but you really ain't walking with them. Now that the pandemic hit, you got to do the work for real relationship. And now we're having to do it, and it's becoming more organic, and it's not a program. You know what I'm saying? You can't go to choir rehearsal. So you realize you really wasn't that cool with that lady you sing next to. You only have each other's phone number, right? Y'all wasn't that in the first place. So now you got to do the work to get to know somebody, right? So we can't program it. We got to do it organically.
That is so key. The organic piece. Yes, 2020 vision. I see you, Tara. Pastor Brandon say, preach, Pastor. I love that organic piece. I'm gonna lighten this up a little bit. For those who may not know you, what are 3 things you enjoy about pastoring? So somebody's watching you tonight and have never heard of you, but they're just impacted by what you're sharing. What are 3 things that you enjoy about pastoring?
I'm the newbie here. I really don't have a whole lot. I enjoy loving people well. I just walking with people is just the thing of my life. I enjoy being in a position just to walk with people. Like, of course, I love the moments of preaching because it's the moments where the personal study and devotion and the grind and really wrestling with the Lord all week on something. When you see the light bulb go off for somebody and they respond with faith and repentance, or they commit themselves, it's like all of the wrestling on Thursday and Friday and Saturday work, right? So I do enjoy that. And then I enjoy hearing from the Lord as it relates to vision, right? Like the moments and the times where it's not just about the church moments, right? But it's the stuff where the Lord is trying to move you forward in influence in the business world or influence in your community, like just the vision things that the Lord gives on the day-to-day. I found my walk with the Lord being a lot closer because I got to hear from him about more stuff. Like I got to hear from God about more stuff being a pastor than I did just preach it all the time. You know what I mean? I knew how to hear from the Lord to prepare a sermon. Now I got to hear from the Lord about how to deal with a personnel issue, or about how to talk to the mayor about just like, right. So now I'm getting wisdom and downloads for other problems that I never had to think through, and to be like, oh God, you're concerned about that too. Like you'll give me wisdom for that too. So I've enjoyed that.
That's good, Pastor Chris. Pastor K.
I would say my top 3, as Pastor Chris was saying, pastors, the visionary piece of it, I love because I'm a builder. And I'm an architect by nature. And so I'm called to help people to transform things from one state to another. And so regardless of what it looks like right now, I'm able to get a download from God about how this can be transformed. And so whether that's in the life of a person, whether that's in organizationally, whether like when Pastor Chris was talking about the structure, like God has been dealing with me about that a lot for the last year and a half, because I need something to put that abundance inside to hold that. And so I love the amount of creativity that God has given me since I've become like a lead pastor. And also my sermon time with God is different from when I was on the road preaching. I don't know if it's because I don't know if he just super loves the people at True City, or if it's that a pastoral preaching is different from itinerant preaching. And so the meticulousness of the sermon crafting, because it's like, Pastor Chris, there are times where I'm ending up in a full weep because I understand like what it is that the Father is trying to communicate to his children. You understand what I'm saying? Which is different from when I'm just going to do something on the road. And so I'm enjoying that as a pastor. And lastly, like pastor, it's the pastoral counseling, of course, because I'm a therapist. So I love to counsel. But I tell you, when I have a member who is like, my life is over. My life is over, Pastor Khaalida. I can't go on another day. Everything in my life is absolutely horrible. And you just layer by layer try to reconstruct to help them to see. And they came in so defeated and they leave out. Like, I can do this thing. I love it. There's nothing you can pay me for it. I get in my car and I drive home and I'm like, I feel like my life is fulfilled because of the way that person just walked out of my presence. And to be able to be trusted by God to do that is a deep honor. As pastors, like Pastor Chris, like God trusts us to walk with people and to be a voice for them. And that is something that is just deeply humbling.
Thank you both for sharing that. So I'm gonna switch it a little bit and I'm gonna take it to this pandemic. So we talked about what you love. What are 3 things you've missed about pastoring in the midst of this pandemic? So we getting to go into, what is it, month number? What is this? March? Lord, it's been a long time. Month number 9 of this thing, or month number 10. What have you missed? Like, I'll tell you what I've missed. I've missed the fellowship, which has grown a whole lot more outside of. I miss being. Oh, let me even phrase that. I'm not a pastor. This is what I miss though about being in church. I miss the fellowship. I miss just the commitment to ministry. So whether it's singing with the praise team or singing with the choir, I don't want to sing in a box. I want to sing with my people. You know. I miss paying my tithes and my offering in person. You know, I love Givelify. But I miss. I love handing my seed and putting it back into good ground.
Yeah. I feel like the main thing I miss, and then Pastor Chris can go, I miss corporate worship because at True City we worship, like we run, like we get it in, and it's the power of corporate worship, and so that's what I miss the most. I miss corporate worship. Because when your hallelujah matches with my thank you, G, like, I mean, the presence of God is so powerful in worship at True City. And I miss that so bad. Like, you all have no idea. I'm starved for that. Like me, Khaalida. And so that's what I miss most and I'm ready to get back to. So, yeah.
Love it.
I miss hugs. I miss the corporate worship. Now, again, to that point, yeah, we have a small, capacity gets to register to come into service, and that's been incredibly refreshing. But ain't nothing like when we all together. And I mean, Lord have mercy, I miss it. I miss hugs and being able just to shake hands and love on people throughout the week. No, I mean 3 things. I don't know.
Well, it's
sometimes. And here's the third thing. This is the third thing I will say. I miss. How do I say this? I miss a time where people weren't gathering in fear. Like there's this. It's almost this spiritual thing to it, where concern, like legitimate concern for a real thing, has morphed into the type of fear that I think dishonors God. Yep. And I miss when we lived without fear like that. You know what I'm saying? Because it impacts how you worship, it impacts how you pray, it impacts how you fellowship, it impacts everything that we do. I miss a time where people are coming together and you weren't scared. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Brandon, I'm not playing with you. This side, please stand. This side, please stand and face the rear of the wall. No, I love what you both are saying. It's just there are just certain things you can't buy. The worship, corporate worship, is an experience, and it's I'm a G. I'm thugging through this virtual thing, but I miss the atmosphere. I miss you miss the people. You miss the all that stuff. Where am I at now? So in the midst of this, things are still going left, and things are still going in the midst of this pandemic. How do you find balance while serving? How are you self-caring for Pastor Khaalida? How are you self-caring for Pastor Chris? And is it the same before the pandemic and during? How are you finding those moments where you're able to breathe, to try to relax, and these are you're like Pastor Khaalida, you're a pastor and you're a therapist, so that's heavy. Pastor Chris, you're doing full-time ministry as a senior pastor. That's heavy. How are you taking care of yourself?
Two things. One, I will say that this pandemic forced us all to have a hard reset, right? It forced us to have to say, maybe the pace I was running at before the pandemic was an unhealthy pace. So one, I've tried to craft out my time and fight for that time to the best of my ability to say this day I'm not going to. These days I will. And then I go to therapy, Jack. I shout out to, he ain't on here, but shout out to my therapist. Praise the Lord for him. I ain't gonna tell y'all his name because I don't want y'all looking for him. But that's been a really healthy thing, a healthy outlet. And I've talked to other people who kind of feel what I feel. Like I've just tried to be intentional about. I've always been the guy that avoids the preacher circles. You know what I'm saying? It's just not really my vibe. It's not my speed. But I've found some pastors that I can talk to. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it makes me just feel like I'm not in it by myself. Because sometimes I want to say, Lord, do you know these Negroes didn't give? Like, you know, did they, or do you know that this happened today? Or, you know, and people who would just get it and understand. So I think those have been the things. And then I picked up a hobby, man. I go, like I mentioned it, I go play golf. I ain't been playing that long, but the reason I go out there is because it's quiet and it gives me a chance to be with my thoughts and not think about what email I got to answer or whatever. So I got a hobby, I got a therapist, and I'm trying to reset my life and fight for that time.
Love it, man. I love it. That's good, man.
I know. That's so awesome. Yes. I love seeing a Black man say, shout out to my therapist. Whew. It's just a beautiful thing to see and to hear. Thank you for setting that example so that other men can know that it's all good. Like it really is. I do like Sabbath, which again is not a particular day. One day out of the week, I usually try to do the same day just so that my body's in a rhythm. And so it can expect the rest and then receive it when the day comes. And so I definitely make sure that I'm not overexerting myself because then I can't focus. But I will be honest to say that this COVID season has taken up a lot of mental strain for me because you're talking about a seat of uncertainty. And as a leader, I kind of rest my mind when the plan has been created and is put into play. And because there's this lingering uncertainty in the back of my mind, which is not, it's not false, it's a real uncertainty. My mind, I can tell it's hard for me to get my mind to settle. And that's when I have to just say, like, Khaalida, in this area, like you have to trust God. Whenever our mind is not settled, it's because we're holding on to something instead of letting God have it. And so it's been a little bit of a challenge for me, meaning that even when I'm supposed to be resting, I feel like this thing, like gnawing at, you know what I'm saying? Just worrying about what's going to happen next, because sometimes I honestly don't know because of COVID. And so I'm trying to, and you know, the other thing, y'all, you know, how people say, I can't wait for this year to be over. I'm ready for the new year. We always think it's something magical is gonna happen on January 1st, but I'm ready for the new. But COVID, y'all know COVID. We're gonna be dealing with COVID on January 1st, 2021.
January 1st, the calendar will change.
Listen, we are not in any way near the end of this situation, and so because of that, I'm asking God to help me to rest in the uncertainty, because it's uncertain to me, but it's not uncertain to him. So that my rest can get back to like a fully peaceful place regarding my mental capacity. Because I'm a thinker, I'm analytical.
You know, it's crazy. When you said it, the only thing I can think about is Jesus sleeping on the boat in the storm.
I know, that's
how it is.
Yes.
And we're like pulling and toiling and trying to figure out how we gonna make this work. And Jesus is like, fam, I'm on the boat. Y'all can relax. Like,
because the key is that we're going to the other side. We're going to it's not, and so whatever waves hit, that we still going to the other. The destination hasn't changed. And I tell the church that just because it's a different route doesn't mean it's a different promise. And so, but I say that to them, Pastor Chris, at Bible study, and then I go sit on my couch and I'll be like, Khaalida, did you just hear what you just said or no?
Lord, what am I gonna do? Lord, help me. Yeah, I'm
like, Lord, can I eat this good thing that I just put together for the people? And it's a reminder, Pastor Chris, that, and I say this all the time, it's coming out in my new book, shepherds, we're under shepherds. To God, we're his sheep. And we have to make sure that we are equally digesting for Khaalida, not Pastor Khaalida, but for Khaalida, because I'm one of God's daughters.
I gotta grow too. My growth is still a requirement, even though I'm required to help other people grow.
Come on.
Right. One of the things that I do to our staff is I'll try to send out a weekly email to our staff where I tell, and here's what sermon I listened to this week. Y'all heard me preach. Here's what I listened to this week. Here's something, and I try to be faithful to my own personal devotion. And then I hate, and this is so funny, I hate going back and listening to myself. Hate it. Never do it.
I don't want to hear my voice. Me too. Thank you.
I had to sit down, especially when I was pre-recording, I had to sit down and watch service like everybody else and sit up and say, oh, wow, you did say that. That's good. Now take that for you. Like, it was like watching me tell me what I needed to see. It was, that's good.
So I'm gonna pose a question to both of you, and once I pose it, if the other one wants to join in and add to it, that's perfectly fine. If not, I have a question coming for you. So I'm gonna start with Pastor Khaalida, if that's okay. So Pastor Khaalida, there's can you provide a word of encouragement for that pastor or leader watching who may be thinking this pastoring thing just isn't for me anymore?
Come on.
I'm in this middle of this pandemic and I just don't, God, I don't have it. God, I don't know what to do. But I'm listening to Pastor Khaalida and Pastor Chris on tonight, and they're pouring into me. And can you share something with them to just make them push a little bit harder and just not to get out of that dead space?
Yeah, I would say to whoever that is that's watching that God has not changed his opinion concerning your assignment. That he knows everything about you. He's taken it all into consideration, the private, secret things, right? The weaknesses. And the Bible says that he can work all of that together, right? For good. And what I love is that, his strength is made perfect in your weakness. And so there are some things that God wants to do, even in your posture of, I can't do another thing. I can't go another step. And God is like, good, because that's what I was waiting for. Because there are ways that I want to carry you. There are ways that I want to undergird you, not your staff, not your spouse, but me. I want to show you how much I can come underneath you and help you to do what it is that I need you to do. So this weakness that you are feeling, God's strength can be made multiplied in this. And he called you when he knew that COVID was coming. And so, Pastor, whoever you are, I want you to get some sleep. And I need you to sleep twice. Listen, in Kings, right? Okay, so listen, fam, Elijah, when you will get to the point where you will be so exhausted, and he had just experienced a victory, you would think that he was excited, but now, like Jezebel's, right, trying to come after him to try to kill him, and the angel, the prescription was, you need to go to sleep, and then wake up and eat, and then go to sleep again. To that, Pastor, I say, just like Calvin asked us how we are resting, make sure that you are resting twice and you are eating twice, meaning that you get enough rest for the people, but enough rest for you, and enough of that word for the people, but enough of that word for you. Because God is concerned about you, but you can do this. There have been nights this year where I have said to God, I can't do this. And he would say back to me, I never intended for you to. I need to use you. I don't need you to do it. I'm looking for an obedient vessel that will give me the space to do it through them. I don't need you as much as you think I need you. Stay right where you are and watch me do what I do through you. You can do this, Pastor. You got this. And God's got you. Yeah.
Whoever is watching, God, I just thank you for me being obedient. Thank you for that, Dr. Forbes.
Sure. Yes, Lord.
Pastor Chris, I'm coming to you. A word of encouragement for someone watching to deal with whatever they may be going through. So, Pastor Khaalida touched on the pastor and the leader. Somebody that's not a pastor or a leader is just watching, and they just happened to log on tonight and just saw this stream and just jumped on. And can you give them some type of word just to push even harder?
I would remind them to shift perspective. I think it is so easy to look at the struggle and miss the salvation. It's so easy to focus our eyes on what's bothering us, so much so that we miss what God is doing to keep us. I think about Peter, Peter and the disciples are on the boat. Jesus comes walking to them on the water in the storm. Peter said, Lord, if it's you, bid me to come. Jesus says, come. Now, Peter knew about the storm when he stepped off the boat because he had been in the storm already. He knew about the storm. He knew about COVID, right? He knew about what was going on. The Bible says that he gets off the boat and he does something crazy. He starts walking. But do you know what that text says? Everybody's like, he took his eyes off Jesus. And it's so true. But do y'all know what the text says? The Bible says, and I'm not making this up. The Bible says that Peter saw the wind. Here's the problem, y'all. You can't see wind.
Yes.
Meaning, he focused on the impact of the wind on everything else around him. And because of that, it caused him to miss the fact that the wind that was affecting everything around him wasn't affecting him.
Preach, sir.
Above water, and everything else was blowing and going crazy. It is so easy for us to focus on the impact of the wind around us and miss the fact that God is keeping us in the storm.
Wow.
Yes, it's rough, and I am not minimizing how difficult it is. But do you realize that if you're watching me now, you at least got a computer to watch me on, or a phone that's working to watch me?
Come on.
That you have two options. Option one is to look at the difficulty and focus on that. Or option two is to turn your attention to what God is doing in the difficulty to keep you, to sustain you, to save you, to show you some things. And this is a great opportunity for you to shift your mind from what's wrong to what God is keeping right. And if you do that, what you will discover is you got a reason to give thanks. And grateful hearts are typically the cure to sad situations. If you find a reason to be grateful in the middle of it, then you'll realize, you know what, God, in spite of this, you're still good. It's something that I spent the whole month of November sharing with our church. Like, in everything, give thanks. Because this is the will of God in Christ Jesus concerning you. And when people say that, they typically say, yeah, well, okay, in everything means I got to find a reason to be grateful no matter what's going on around me. But what I argue is like, yes, but you also need to see that the negative stuff going on around you, God wants to use for you. So you got to learn to even give thanks for that. Yes. Right? Like, if we trust the sovereignty of God, if we really believe the Bible that we preach, if we really believe the verses that we shout about, because Dr. Forbes, you noted, if I got up in church and said all things, work together, folks start running around. But until you realize that all things means the negative too. It means COVID, it means furlough, it means layoff, it means divorce, it means abandonment, it means betrayal. It means all of that stuff has to work together, because you do know that phrase "work together" in Greek. I done got happy now. That phrase "work together" in Greek is where we get our English term synergy from. It literally suggests that God makes positive and negative forces push you in the right direction. It is synergy. And I just really want to encourage you that you cannot have growth for a plant if there ain't some sunshine and some rain. And that's the point. I think you can trust that God is using the stuff that don't feel good for your good. And if you would just shift your perspective, you would see he got the nerve, the audacity to not only use it for you, but keep you while he's using it. Like, while it's going bad, he's not just keeping. Some of y'all, Pastor Tola Morgan said, if you really pay attention to it, some of y'all will realize that the pandemic has been better for you than you would admit. Because some of the relationships that the Lord forced to end because of COVID needed to end in the first place. And some of you will try to figure out how to quit the job that you lost. And some of y'all will try to figure, because God has a way of using the stuff we don't like to put us in position for where we need to be. Shift your perspective in this season. Turn your eyes from the stuff that's going wrong and realize that God still keeps you. Psalm 119 says it this way: Lord, turn my eyes from worthless things. Give me life through your word. And what does his word say? My God shall supply all your needs according to. What does his word say? You are the head and not the tail. You're more than a conqueror. All things work together. And the list goes on and on. Turn my eyes from worthless things. Give me life through your word. And I hope that will encourage you.
Yeah, I'm gonna hurt both of y'all. Because you got me over here rocking like my grandma when you try to keep still, and you try and I forget I'm over here.
God, I start to rock. Sorry.
And I'm trying to keep myself together and not get up. I'm here. No, thank you both for that. Like, I just felt, God, I just thank you for your obedience. I do these shows every week, and he downloaded for me to do a show on pastoring in a pandemic. Now, the way this thing works is just like with you when you're doing sermon prep. He gives you a topic, and then I pray, and he gives me the conduits that I need to invite on to help bring this thing to life. So I want to just thank the both of you for agreeing to join me on tonight. This has been good. If you missed it, if you shared the broadcast, if someone missed it, they can watch it on the YouTube channel. But this pastoring in a pandemic thing is so real. I just wanted to bring on some lights to come on tonight. And one thing about candles, each of you are a candle in my eyes. And one thing about candles, they don't compete; they complement each other. So the way that you both came on tonight and just engaged with me and dialogue with me, and were able to just provide insight and encouragement to that man or that woman who was watching, I thank you both from just the bottom of my heart. Pastor Khaalida, you personally, this Dialogues with Doc is something you spoke March 15th. I don't know if you remember, you said before we left church, God is going to work on your creativity in this season. If you don't come out of this pandemic being more creative, something's wrong. You said God is you need to go back and pick something up that you may have put down, or that you may, or God may give you a new download. So Dialogues with Doc was a new download that he gave me, thanks to that word that you spoke over all of us before we dismissed back in March. So thank you for that.
Love you. You know I love you, Balcony. I love you. Yeah.
Pastor Chris, man, you we've prayed, we've laughed, we've cried. I wouldn't be the man I am without people like you in my corner. And I'd be remiss if I did not honor your father as well on tonight, because your father was like a father to me as well, not just as a spiritual father, but whenever I was in Antioch, hey son, how you doing? My mama who's watching would always, I told your pastor on you. So your dad will pull me up in the corner and say, well, what's going on? Well, together. So I honor God for the life of your dad, and for you to continue in the legacy of the ministry, because True City and Antioch haven't seen their best days yet. What God has in store for each of those ministries as they continue to thrive in the midst of this pandemic and then on. I'm just so excited to be connected to both of them and have you both in my life. So thank you both for joining me on tonight. Tell the people how they can follow you. I'm going to drop both church websites and Instagram accounts into the chat. Where am I at? I'm sorry, I gotta do this the right way. What's coming down the pipeline for you, and how can people keep up with you?
So professional.
Ain't that, boy, that's tough.
I try to be.
I don't know if y'all have seen the Michael Jackson movie, the movie about Michael Jackson's last tour called This Is It. But in the opening credit sequence, it's about the last tour he was about to go on, the behind the scenes. And they were building out this concert in the show before he passed away. In the opening credit scenes, one guy said, they were interviewing a dancer, and he said, I don't know what I'm going to do after this, because, you know, this is Michael Jackson. This is it. That's how I feel. That's how I feel tonight. I don't know what comes next. I'm sitting here with Dr. Calvin Green, Dr. Khaalida Forbes. I done made it, y'all. But in all seriousness, man, y'all can follow me on social media at Chris.dot, Chris.Wesley on all social media. So ChrisDotWesley. You can follow me there on social media. And shameless plug, y'all can check out, I'm a gospel artist as well, so y'all can check out our group at UD Praise. Chris Wesley and Undignified Praise. We're actually working on some new music, so we're about to put out another record during this pandemic. The Lord has been birthing some creativity in me as well, and been writing new songs and stuff like that. So I'm excited to share that stuff. But yeah, man, that's all I got. I'm basic, but y'all can follow me. If something pops off, y'all be there. But you want to find me, I'll be at 7550 Southampton Road, pastoring the most incredible church, man, the Antioch Fellowship Church. And I thank God so much for the opportunity he gave me to shepherd such an incredible people. I didn't see it coming in the way it came, but God's blessed it. And I'm so honored. So thank you for allowing me to be a part, man. You know, I ain't nobody. So thank you, bro. Thank you so much.
Love you, man.
Love you, brother.
Right. True. You can reach me on Instagram. That's where I hang out, at Khaalida Forbes. First name, last name. Very simple. And True City's Instagram is at True City DC. And so any information that you want, everything that it's all highlighted there. So I've actually been on a little bit of a sabbatical since August on social media. It's the last time I posted something on the page, just because I needed to be able to focus on this little young church, and it was worth the sacrifice. In January, it's on and popping. And so definitely keep connected. Because we have a lot of awesome things happening with Khaalida Forbes Enterprises, which is being launched in January. And so, yeah, we're shifting from Metamorphosis Enterprises. That's the company that I've had for 10 years now. And so we're shifting over. So I'm excited about being very like pinpoint about exactly who it is that God has called me to support and to encourage in this upcoming decade, which this decade is going to be a significant decade for the world at large. I said that when we reach 2030, nothing about what we know of the world is going to be as it is now. And so everything that we do in the next 9 years now, if you will, is going to be very critical. And so 2020 was really just a tithe unto the Lord for what he's about to do this decade. And so you can reach me right on the gram. And also, Pastor Chris, it was an honor to meet you virtually tonight.
The pleasure was mine.
Yeah, like which I'm sure you can when you meet people, you just know, or it's like, yeah or no. And I can feel that you are a man of God. And I look forward to being able to meet you in person, but virtually, I've truly enjoyed being in your presence tonight. And so I honor you for the man of God that my spirit discerns that you are. So it's nice to meet you.
That means the world to me. The pleasure's mine. I followed your ministry for some time. My big sister, Dr. Breonna Parker, preached for us a couple of weeks ago. And she somehow or another, your name came up and she was just raving.
I love her.
And so this is a pleasure. I was already excited to do this with my brother, and then he posted that you were coming, and I was like, oh Lord, I need to go read a couple more books or something. I need to, but that means more than the world to me. You've been a blessing to me from a distance for some time. So just to have the opportunity to meet you and dialogue with you has been incredible. Thank you so much for what you imparted even into me tonight. That means the world.
Ditto. Thank you, Calvin. Look at what you done did. You
connected me.
Listen, I was just being obedient. And this, I couldn't have imagined how tonight's show would have gone. I was just being obedient. God gave me the topic. And I just flowed with it. And I thank you guys for being the vessels to come on and just share out. So ladies and gentlemen, this has been Dialogues with Doc, pastoring in a pandemic with the amazing and phenomenal Pastor Dr. Khaalida Forbes and Pastor Dr. Soon Chris Wesley join me on tonight. I pray that something was shared, that something was said that is impactful to you. I pray that a word of encouragement was given to any pastor or leader that may be watching that is struggling with how do I maneuver through this thing. Don't forget to shift your perspective and match your faith with somebody else's faith, and we can get through this thing. I will see you guys again on next Wednesday. I don't know what the topic is yet, but I'll be back next Wednesday at 8 p.m. for another edition of Dialogues with Doc. Please follow my guests on tonight on every platform and follow them and keep up with them and glean from them as I do each and every day, because there are some amazing giants in ministry who are doing some amazing and great things. Thank y'all for watching. Hey, Mama, I saw you watching. I love you.
Hey, Mama.
Thank you guys for joining me, and I will see you guys next week.